Hello, everyone. Zane the Penmeister here, back with our second episode of Behind the Screen. Today with me is my wonderful guest, Cameron, who joined us last episode. Welcome back to the show, Cameron.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Always a pleasure.
All right.
Tonight,
You know what? Let's just jump straight into it.
ooh,
As a player, do you prefer plot-driven campaigns or character-driven campaigns?
oh, that is yes. Um, I like character. I like plot-driven campaigns with character development. Um, so for me as a player and as a DM, I would want that the campaign has a central plot, but then what I would also like is for the ability to have my character and each other player's character as well to have like arc within the plot. So that way every character has at least one moment in the limelight.
Yeah.
Because
I completely understand that.
yeah, a lot of really good media out there, regardless of its origin, has each character having a moment of um shining through.
Yeah, yeah, I completely get that. Now, as a DM, do you prefer to run a plot-driven campaign or a character-driven campaign?
Yes. uh, I always come up with a plot. So there has to be, for me, there has to be a reason why there's a thing, and it comes from being a creative individual. There has to be a plot. There has to be a reason is why are we focusing on this one specific story? What makes that story worth investing in, both as a player and as a DM? And characters can offer a great way of bringing that stuff in. So what I tend to do is with a campaign, I will have a beginning and I will have an end. So I'll be like, okay, this is how the players will meet, and this is what's going to happen. And then the end is this is what's going to happen eventually. What then happens is that I don't generally plan out the middle, and whatever the players do, that will influence the middle of the story, and eventually there will come a point where I go, okay, I feel like now's a good time to put this plot point in that I've had sitting here. And then see what happens.
Yeah, I completely get that. Because you know you don't want to prepare too much, but you kind of have an idea where you want the story to end. So you just want to see how the players get you there. Or get themselves there.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone gets there in the end.
Yeah.
You're the person who knows the destination, but you don't know how to get there, and everyone's looking at the map going, oh, we should go there, we should go there.
Yeah. I think the best part about plotting the beginning and the end like that is you can, with you knowing where the end is, it doesn't matter where they end up. You could say that they, let's say you want the end to be in this specific town in this country you've made. But they just they follow this like whole plot line somewhere else, if need be, you can literally just move it.
Yeah,
This is probably what my favorite part about that. You can change whatever you want.
definitely.
All right. How familiar are you with RPGs that are not D&D?
Where to begin? Um, so I think the first ever tabletop role playing game I played wasn't even D&D. It was Call of Cthulhu.
Okay.
Um, I started with fifth and sixth edition, and then got hold of seventh edition and thought this makes it so much easier to plan. I know there's people out there. I feel like fifth and sixth edition Call of Cthulhu are very much the 3.5 of Call of Cthulhu in D&D terms, and seventh is fifth edition.
Got it.
But I, especially for players, I feel like for seventh edition is a bit easier, especially for newcomers. Um, Other than that, I've done games in Dungeon World. I've done uh, the Alien RPG, Monster Hearts, Deadlands, uh, the Fantasy Flight game Star Wars RPG, Edge of the Empire. Um, the list is quite long, and of course Delta Green. Um,
I knew you were going to mention Delta Green.
well, I had to. That's how I met my girlfriend.
That's fair. Speaking of which, I do need to get that link for that podcast from you.
She'll get it to you. That's not going to be an issue.
Oh no, I just want to watch it myself.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, the
What
Divergent.
about you?
Oh me? Um, I've actually not really played a lot of tabletop role playing games except for D&D. I started D&D back when I was 13 years old, right about the time 5th edition came out. I think might have been a little bit later than that. I forget how far back 5th edition came out.
Yeah, it it's been out for a while, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like it.
Yeah, but yeah, I started on D&D 5th edition, playing with a couple of my buddies. We'd go over like once or twice a week or a month, and we'd play for a couple hours. And in the summer, we'd do like weeks of just D&D every single day at my friend's house. But that's really my extent for tabletop role playing games. I mean, I've played like Skyrim and stuff, but yeah, as far as tabletops go, it's just been D&D for me.
Fair enough.
Now, just a little bit more on this topic. Which of these tabletop role playing games would you consider your favorite or favorites if you can't decide between a couple?
Thank you for that. For that. What's the word I'm looking for? Modifier.
Yeah,
I'd
give you a
say,
plus two to the question.
yeah. Um, Definitely for me, I would say Delta Green and Call of Cthulhu. Um, because I'm a massive lover of Lovecraftian fiction. Um, Looking into the world of a tortured, very, very troubled individual is vaguely interesting to me. I'd also say D&D is also one of my favorites. Um, and I would also say Monster Hearts, interestingly enough, because it's a fairly simple idea, but it's also a really good idea at the same time for a game.
How so?
So, Monster Hearts is, if you read just the premise, it makes it's a fairly simple premise. The idea is you are playing a bunch of teenagers in high school who have suddenly gotten paranormal powers. Um, the so it's a simple premise, but you can do so much with it. You can have it so that maybe it's just a recurring thing across the world, like, oh, all of you have paranormal powers, or you can have it so that they have to keep it hidden. It's like, is it a Monster High situation, or is it a Buffy the Vampire Slayer situation?
Neat.
And had a lot of fun with that with the game that I ran.
Well, Cameron, how much time do you play D&D compared to other RPGs you play?
Uh, I probably would say for a while I was playing D&D at least once a week. Um, Trying to balance work life with board game life was very difficult. Um, so I try and play at least one board game, one tabletop a week. And it has generally been D&D or Delta Green, one of those two.
Mm-hmm.
So at the moment, it is a real toss-up between those two as to which is the biggest contender. I'd argue D&D is the more long-term one, whereas Delta Green tends to be a lot more one-shots.
Okay. And how are you introduced into tabletop role playing games?
Um, I I actually got into tabletop role-playing games quite late. I think, about 1920. Not as in I was in the year 1920. I'm not a time traveler. I may have a British accent, but I do not have access to a blue police box. Um, the I was about 19 or 20 years old, and I, of all things, got introduced to tabletop role playing games by Geek and Sundry. Actually, um, they not sponsored.
There you
They
go.
Yeah. They did a one shot of Paranoia because the latest edition was coming out, so they were doing a one shot, I believe, to celebrate that. Um, Ivan Van Norman was the computer, and they had Will Wheaton, Felicia Day, Matt Mercer, bunch of other people whose names I can't remember. And I watched that, and I could not stop laughing. It was brilliant. It was fun, and I was like, I want more of this. And then I watched the Pathfinder Goblin one shot that Critical Role did just before their 50th episode ever. Uh, and I loved that. So I was like, oh, this is really cool. Are there more videos? Oh, there's more videos. That's a lot of jeepers. That's a lot of videos. And then binge watched the ever loving crap out of Critical Role. Um, and was like, I want to get in on this. I want to find this. So, through discovery of the internet, on the internet, I just started looking for people who were interested in games, and then my my friendship base has expanded ever since.
So do you think that D&D or other tabletop role-playing games have affected your day-to-day life with any influences or anything like that?
Uh, I would say so. Definitely one of the things it did was it got me out of my shell. I was not someone who made friends easily, because I had never really grown up uh, having friends. I was friendly, but I never really felt like anyone was a friend. And then with tabletop, it just changed my whole outlook on life because now um, I could have friends and things felt real and people felt real. And I could enjoy things that previously felt inaccessible to me. So definitely getting into the tabletop circle really helped with that. It made me a lot more confident to approach people and just say, "Hey, do you want to be a friend?"
Yeah.
And by by becoming friends with people, I've got out of my shell, and it also made me a lot better as a person. I was very much a controversial person before I got into tabletops. And then with getting involved in tabletops, I started to realize, oh, okay, this is something that actually a lot of people don't like. I need to stop that because I'm going to lose friends this way. And so worked on that.
So you would you say it's had a positive effect on your life?
Oh, definitely. Very much so. If it wasn't for tabletop role playing games, I think with absolute certainty, I would be a much worse person than I actually am today. So I owe a lot of my friendships to tabletop role playing games and helping me get out of being a cringe edge lord wannabe that was borderline incel at one point. Um, I'll happily admit that thanks to actually having friends and getting out of the house, metaphorically, because a lot of the stuff is online still, but actually hearing from other people, it made me a much better person today.
Yeah, I could totally understand that. He's giving me a lot of good points there. Um, okay, here's one. How
Mhm.
young do you think a person should be before they start getting into the tabletop role playing game scene? Or do you even think there should be an age limit and people should just be able to enjoy it the way they want?
Um, I say let. uh, I'd say let them come in whenever they want. The trick is not necessarily to put an age restriction on tabletop role playing.
Do you think it'd be
You
smarter just to put a content restriction on games instead of an age restriction then?
Yes and no. It's also just a case of remembering who you're playing with. So
Yeah.
for example, if you're running a game with a lot of blood and gore and violence, um, like I wouldn't subject my nephews. I've got four nephews that want to get into tabletop role playing games, and the youngest is going to turn 11 soon. I would not put them in a game that featured a lot of blood and gore. Um, because I was in actually talking with my sister about running a game for them, and I said that, and when she was like, "Can we have a game where there's not a lot of blood and gore?" I said, "Okay, that's no trouble." So I came up with a game where the big bad evil guy was a necromancer, and they had
Yeah,
a skeleton army. So very child friendly in the sense of they're not going to go around killing people.
they're just going to be
They're
knocking skeletons over and watch bone piles collapse.
exactly, and then they can fight the evil big bad necromancer, and we'll do um when the big bad evil necromancer gets defeated, we'll do like an epic their power evil power explodes and they disappear in a flash of sickly green light. Um, nothing, nothing bad in terms of like blood or anything. Um,
So it'd be more like a Power Ranger enemy where they, you know, start glowing and just explode outward instead of
yeah,
like, yeah,
yeah, nothing. I think the most violent thing they would have seen would have been very, to use a trope, very Disney esque. Um,
she
so,
pricked her
so
finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and there was a single drop of blood. Oh, the
yep.
horror.
Um, Actually, it's quite appropriate because you do see what's left of Maleficent at the end of Sleeping Beauty, and it's just this black shard where her dragon form's collapsed, and Philip's sword in the middle of it. So she
Which could easily
has,
be a reference to the Sword in the Stone if you think about it.
yeah, it's probably one of the most violent Disney deaths that has been shown actually on camera. But then again, going into that's a deep dive for another day in
Yeah.
terms of
I
because
will add a little snippet to that. What I think was probably worse was from the Princess and the Frog, how he got literally dragged to hell.
yeah, that's a top one. Um, I mean, if you want to go really dark, go look at the Renaissance.
Hmm.
Seeing Clayton's body silhouette, Scar getting eaten alive by the hyenas, um, and Frollo literally falling into the eternal pits of hell.
Yeah.
God, I love Hunchback of Notre Dame.
All right. Diverging a little bit on this topic. What type of
Yeah.
things do you not want to see in a D&D campaign? Like what certain triggers do you think should stay out of campaigns you want to be in?
Um, Very much similar to Amber, violence against children.
Hmm.
Um, I very much steer clear of that when
Yeah.
I run games. And if I might have like the villain might disguise themselves as a child, but I will never explicitly. I will never. It's sort of like pain and what's the other one from Hades, from Hercules, where they disguise themselves as kids to get Hercules
Yeah.
attacked by the Hydra. They're not actually going to be in any trouble. Um, but yeah, I would never want violence against children. Uh, Also, um, anything involving sexual assault. Um, Consent with players is key.
Yeah.
I say this as someone who needs to remind himself about this as well, constantly, because whilst I'm fine with like the silly stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like I if there's going to be a beach episode, as it were, I'll be fine with that. But other people may not be, and if that's the case, then no beach episode, and that's fine. I'm far happier with that
Yeah.
uh, being the case. Um, because the main thing at the end of the day is for me keeping players safe.
Yeah.
Um, so if a player is safe, then they can have fun, and if they have fun, then I, as a DM, can have fun. Uh, that is how I see things, and just my word of self advice always just to chat with your players, check in with them, and go, "Hey, how are you guys doing? Any issues? Anything you want to talk about?" Um, doesn't matter if you've got 2 weeks of experience or 2 decades of experience. Always talk with the players
Yeah.
because, especially if it's like a heavy session, like if you have a session where something really, really big happened, check in with them because that is going to unintentionally weigh on their minds quite a lot. If a player character dies, check in with everyone. If there was an argument between two player characters, check in and make sure everything's okay and that it nobody's going to be
Go off the
upset
deep end,
over
as
it.
it were.
Yeah, because what happens in the campaign can affect what happens in real life.
Yeah.
People who say what happens at the table stays at the table. That's what we want, but also if the table is toxic, then that toxicity doesn't stay in one location. It travels. And that's something that we need to remind ourselves and just be able to go, okay, we've had this moment. I just want to check in with you guys and make sure everything's good.
Yeah. But yeah, speaking of that, I actually, if you remember, had to talk to all y'all about Patch's backstory in his intro, if you
Yes.
remember. And I'm glad I did because we were gonna have a darker version of that backstory, but then I got to talking with the rest of y'all, and y'all told me you really don't want that, but you really don't want that, and so I went back to the Invader and was like, hey, we're gonna have to tone it down. I understand, yeah, your character has to pass away for it to be this race, but it can't be as gruesome as you wanted it. The best I can give you is quick, clean, mentioned once, never to be mentioned again. And thankfully enough, he was okay with that. And
Yeah. That's one of the things that I like about about Patch's Player Invader is that he's open to um, being told, "Hey, maybe just tone it down a little bit," with his backstory.
yeah,
That's a sign of someone who actually cares about the game because it's like if you get you get players like Invader who go, okay, I get where the other players are coming from. I will turn it down. That's fair. Because we can still have this dark backstory, but there's a difference between it being a dark backstory and it being a dark backstory.
unnecessarily gruesome backstory. Yeah,
Yeah. It's all fine and dandy, for example, to say, oh, yeah, I came from a town that no longer exists because it got slaughtered. Just as an example, this isn't Invader's story for Patch. But if you go into the visceral detail of what happened to that town, um, yeah, no, um, that's not really that that kind of can put people off.
Yeah,
And to me, players who refuse to change their backstories to make other people uncomfortable, this is just a personal thing, but those kinds of players to me strike me a little bit too much main character syndrome.
I was just gonna say that. Definitely main character syndrome, if not a mild case of narcissism.
Yes. I mean, I feel so terrible with my backstory because I could go so in depth. And like, I sent you a page and a half
Yes, you
of
did, and I
stuff.
know you could probably send me more because you sent me like a summary of a summary.
Yeah. I sent you the summary because I'm thinking I don't want, because it's, for me, my biggest fear as a player is to unintentionally become the main character.
Yeah,
That's that's why I mute myself during conversations, because I'm not there.
yeah,
And if I make a quip, that can interrupt the flow. Um, and when it comes to like the main character, like I want everyone to have a moment to shine. I was um, like during our last combat, um, we had everyone having brilliant moments of shining through. We had
yeah. That episode
um,
isn't coming out till next week, so
yeah,
try not to spoil too
but,
much.
but yeah, everybody has a moment where they actually got a moment to be a badass,
Yeah, it
and
was
that's,
crazy.
oh yeah, it was absolutely fucking crazy.
You had your
But
moment.
everybody,
Patch had his moment. Rion had her moment. Alexandria, Vlad, Karma. It
yeah,
was it was probably the
that's
best combat I was ever able to watch and be a part of.
yeah, and that's the story. That's what you need as a game. You need everybody to have that moment. Like, I'm thinking about what each player's character did and having just a wonderful time remembering it. I'm not even focusing on what Lyra did. Um, Everybody had their chance, and that is what it boils down to, is that at the end of the day, it's not who is the main character, it's that we're all the main characters. No character, even character, I'm going to reference the D&D movie here. One of the best things about that movie was that each character got a moment to shine. No one had, it was written as the D&D campaign, I'm almost certain about it, and everybody had a moment to shine. Didn't matter which character it was, they all had that moment where they went, okay, we're focusing on this character, we're focusing on that character. And it made that movie incredible. And that's what you need for a campaign. Everybody is the main character, everybody's, the group is rememberable, and everybody gets a chance to be the head.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I'm just glad that I have y'all as my players because y'all are probably the best group of players I've had because you all understand all these things and that yes, everyone needs gets their moment to shine and everyone has their own little mini arcs that they're going to have and during those mini arcs you just got to step back a minute. Let them shine and because you
Definitely.
know you're going to have your own time to shine. Everybody will have their time to shine. Especially when it comes to
Exactly.
that big final battle, everyone's going to have their moment.
Amen to that.
Okay, Okay, we went a little derailed there for a second, but hey, gotta love it. Gotta love it.
Name one campaign that doesn't get derailed.
Uh, Solo play.
Yeah.
Solo play are completely scripted games.
Not if I run them.
D&D Beyond.
Not sponsored.
Not sponsored. Actually, no, I'm calling them out. You know their charity screams seem scripted.
Yeah.
All right. How about this? What is your favorite race and class to play that you have played, and why is it your favorite class or and race?
Oh fuck! Don't make me answer this. uh. Oh dear.
Just name your top two from each.
Uh, this is a difficult one. I think for me. Oh. Oh no. Um. Okay. I can name my classes easier than I can name my races, so I'll go with classes. Cleric and Bard.
Now,
Those are
now Bard I can understand. That's a lot of people's favorites, but you're coming out of left field with Cleric there. I know a lot of people really don't like it.
a lot of people don't, but I do, and the reason why is because people don't like it until they suddenly realize, oh no, we need a cleric. Uh, we anytime I have a cleric, um, being a cleric is a lot of fun, and also it's a great. It's a great. I would argue cleric is probably one of the best beginner spell classes to have, spellcaster classes to have. Um,
I can vouch with you on that.
because
My first character was a dwarf cleric that came from the starter set.
yeah, because the thing is, clerics, paladins, and druids, I believe, are the three classes that have all their spells when they level up, so they know what their spells. They know all their spells. They don't have to pick and choose, and they can swap them out fairly easily. So it's like, oh, we're going to do this. We're going to be doing a lot of socializing and plotting. Maybe I don't need this many spells that helps with combat today. Or, oh, we're going to be doing a lot of fighting. Well, I'm going to say goodbye to this spell that
Gotta get
is
that
going to
mass cure
boost.
wounds ready.
Yep. Okay. Let me go get the rubies for the revivify. Um, because and also with clerics, it's I think it's an easier choice because you don't have to then look at every spell and choose
Yeah,
and then feel like, oh, was this the spell I should have had? Was that the spell I should have had? And what what's ended up happening as well, and this is what will make a lot of min maxers happy. Clerics are OP as fuck.
Jesus.
because because what's happened is Wizards have spent so much. Every edition, the clerics have just gotten more and more and more powerful because nobody wants to play the cleric because everyone assumes the cleric is not going. I feel like a lot of the older players that are troublesome, they wanted to be the main character, and it's like everybody doesn't the cleric doesn't strike initially as someone who is important. They strike as a background character. And then the clerics pull through and actually help the party in more ways than one. Clerics have been responsible, especially in 5th edition now, for a lot more. badass moments from what I've seen than just about any other class. I mean, if you've got a campaign where you're fighting undead, having a cleric with the turn undead ability, if they're a life cleric, they're a walking nuclear bomb. Forget your artificer, just shove the cleric in.
Don't tell that to your nephews.
But
Don't let them know about life cleric.
yeah, cleric is definitely my, because also it allows you to have sociable moments. And as someone who loves roleplay, um, it's a great way to develop a character who is more complex. Um, so yeah, that is my. Those are my two favorite classes. In terms of races to play, um, I would. I God, both of them are so edgy. Tieflings and Drow are my big ones. Though I do also have a soft spot for furbolgs.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see arguments for all that. And for races, we actually do share one favorite. Because my two favorite races to play are Goliath and Tiefling. I love playing Goliaths and Tieflings.
Goliaths are also a lot of fun. One of my favorite NPCs I ever made was the Goliath bouncer.
But yeah, speaking of that Goliath, my two favorite classes would have to be Warlock and Rogue. Now, a cool thing you can do with a Goliath Rogue, you put your expertise in intimidation, and every time your DM asks you to roll a stealth roll, you ask if you can roll intimidation, and your character just screams, "You can't see me!" Gets a nat 20. We don't see you. We don't see you. It's amazing. I love doing that. It's probably one of my favorite things to do. And yes, I know being a Goliath rogue probably isn't meta or good for min maxing, but it's fun.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, I argue fun is more important than min maxing.
Very much so. All right. Now, here's a spicy question I put in just for you. Do you prefer to be the player or the dungeon master, and why?
If you'd asked me that before we started, I would have said the DM. Um, but now it's a lot more difficult. I'm
How so?
still gonna say I'll. I would still say the DM is my preferred location,
Mm-hmm.
but that's because being a player has uh, being a player has benefits that you don't get as a DM.
Mm-hmm.
The big thing about being a player is you don't stress about what's happening to all the. It sounds bad when I put it like that, but you don't have to stress about what the plan is for next week, or the week after for the next session, or the session after that, um, unless like obviously there's things you should consider, like what's going to happen next week. Are we going to do this? Are we going to do that? The DM role, you have to consider anything and everything, and there's still a chance that you think you've got everything, and then your players do something completely out of left field, and it's like, ah, bollocks.
Yeah, speaking of that, I don't know if you remember, but a couple weeks ago, when y'all were getting to that bandit camp, Rion, way out of left field, was like, I'd like to cast Speak with Animals on the horses. I was not expecting
Yes.
that because y'all were already getting ready to go. And I was thinking, okay, cool. And she's like, hold up, hold up. And that's how Hans and Franz was born.
Yep. The best NPCs are born from players being chaotic goblins. Um, One of my all-time loved, beloved characters is, I still can't believe I remember the name, Jack the Soup Kitchen chef. He was a throwaway character, but the players wanted to adopt him. And I had to physically tell them, no, please do not adopt the chef.
This isn't
Um,
One Piece. You can't reject the rejection.
yeah. The It's always a case of the one character that gets the you make one character that gets that's a throwaway, but you put just a little bit too much effort into it, and all of a sudden the players love
Mm-hmm.
them. Um, and there is no DM in the world that is immune from that. Every single DM has, I call it the Victor syndrome. For Victor, the black powder merchant from Critical Role. Throwaway character that Matt made up on the fly and became a fan favorite and a party favorite. And I don't think Matt realized at the time until much later, oh no, what have I done?
Yeah, I've decided to get ahead of the curve on that. I've given Hans and Franz a whole backstory.
Yes.
They have a plot now.
To be fair, so did Jack. He had a whole story where he was a refugee from a neighboring kingdom. And the last time the players interacted with him, he'd actually been given permission by the local city state to set up a proper um, place to operate because he'd been chased out, or he because he was a refugee, he was working basically at a counter uh, in a slum,
Mm-hmm.
and his work was so well liked that the city's merchant council, turned around and said, "Oh yeah, you have permission to come into the city walls and set up an actual proper business now."
That, that's a touching story of Jack the Soup Kitchen chef.
Yeah. Oh, I've just remembered my Victor as another one of my Victors. Had a druid who this was in Dungeon World. They basically wild shaped into a blue tit because the town they were in had a large blue tit population.
Mm-hmm.
So they started talking with the birds, and I panicked in giving the birds an accent. So the blue tits had Italian American gangster accents from the 1930s.
You coming to me on the night of my daughter's wedding, kind of thing.
Yeah. Um, thus was established the Blue Tit Mafia, uh, and their leader, Joe Pecky.
Of the Pecky family.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
His, to this day, I still get memes and messages from my players in that campaign of a bird doing something and being like, "Uh oh, Joe Pecky has gotten involved again."
Honestly, when it comes to those random NPC characters, I'm just waiting for the day Amber decides I'm gonna cast Speak with Animals on Chirp the Battle Weasel. I've
Oh
got
no,
the
don't!
accent ready and everything.
Oh, that's going to be brilliant.
Same with Q's cat, his shadow cat, or whatever it is. I forget. All right. And we really got off topic there. What is your process for making NPCs? That's what I was asking.
Okay, yeah. I didn't hear the question. You cut out just as you were about to ask the question. When it comes to making an NPC, I make a little. There's like, so I immediately roll a bunch of dice in the back of my head
Mm-hmm.
to determine the basic stuff: the race, the age, the sex, the gender. Um, my the important thing for me is, let's say I've got a campaign set in a city that is a melting pot of cultures, because I like doing that. I don't like having one area like massively dominated by one race and then there's smaller little groups. I love melting pots because they make the world a lot more vibrant, and it's also easier for players to feel a lot more comfortable in if they're playing a a more obscure race, if you will.
Yeah.
Um, like if someone like to start off with the starter races, if someone's playing a half orc and I have a city that is dominantly human, well, they might feel inclined to make their character stand out.
Yeah.
But if I say the town has a noticeable half orc population and have the innkeeper as a half orc, and everybody treats that half orc with a modicum of normal respect, then the player is going to be like, oh, okay, this is a game that I'm not going to have to worry about being an outsider in. It's it's another one of my big don'ts is as a DM is don't fall into the trap of making one race the bad guys. Uh, so when it comes to an NPC, I will come up on the because I did improv in theater class. I will quickly come up with like, okay, it is this character or that character. If they're a throwaway, I will just make a quick list of quick description. Okay, you're buying from the you go into a blacksmith. Okay, you find that the blacksmith is a tabaxi male with a ponytail. Um, they are a short-haired feline tabaxi, because that makes sense because the long-haired one's going to have a bit more of an issue
Yeah.
with uh, sparks flying and getting in their whiskers. Oh, you're going to an alchemist to get potion supplies. Okay, you arrive at the alchemist's, and um, it is a halfling female with rainbow hair, um, who's a bit stout and has a bit of a foul mouth because she likes to speak what she thinks. And then, if the players start to develop a friendship with the character, then I will start making like backstories for them, start developing stories for them,
Yeah.
so that it could eventually be a case of they get a side quest. One of my favorite characters I have as a stored NPC in the back of my mind is Henry. Henry is the black market weapon salesman. Um, you need a weapon that is a little bit dodgy, you go to Henry. Um, and in one campaign I was running, he offered a side quest where, for one free item from his shop, you can purchase. You get told that his son owns a farm outside the city, and recently something's been going at his livestock. And if you go take care of the beast that's attacking the livestock, you get a free uncommon item from Henry's store. Um, I had a drow alchemist called Elandra who needed an item dropped off to a friend of hers in a major city. I admittedly did that as a bit of a test on the players, because one of them I was a bit concerned was going to turn into a, ooh, what does this package have? Um, the package was a deck of many things.
How many did it pull?
They never opened it, and I'm proud of them.
I will be honest. One of my DMs gave us a test very similar to that, and it was a deck of many things. I pulled 30 cards.
Oh no, how many avatars did you get?
I got a free wish, and then I got incinerated by Tiamat.
Yep.
You know what my wish was?
Fire resistance?
No. I had he eroded it. I had to use the wish in that second. Basically, it was if I died, my consciousness gets transferred to whoever killed me.
Oh, Chernobyl.
I became Tiamat for the campaign, but
Oops.
I didn't specify how I wanted it, so I became Tiamat, but with my stat block. So I couldn't even fly. I was playing a halfling wizard, okay? So not only do I have the low health, the only thing it gave me a +2 was intimidation. Because I was a literal giant dragon
Yeah,
with 8 hit points and an armor class of
yeah,
12. Because he thought it was a good idea to let level 1 players play around with the deck and many things. But I can't fault him for it.
uh,
We were in high school. It was for the club. Know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah. I also have a test, just going off tangent here, for min maxes. This is my litmus test to find out if someone's becoming a min-maxing murder hobo. I call it the owl bear scenario. Players make camp outside in the wilds, in the plains for the night. And at some point during watch, an owl bear wanders close to the camp. Now, it's not hostile, but it is making a lot of noise. If the players kill it, because they're thinking, oh, it's an owl bear, let's
Here
kill
comes
it.
Mama.
No, the owl bear is Mama.
No. Oh, you have like cubs following her, don't you?
Yes, she was looking for her cubs, and that's why she's making the noise.
And let me guess, the cubs are on the other side of the camp and they come out just to see them slaughter their mother.
Yep, you literally Bambi's mum, the owl bears.
How bad do your players feel?
I am proud to say they did not kill the owl bear. They didn't even touch it. They waited, and after 3 rounds of no combat, the owlbear cubs appeared. They rushed to Mummy, and then Mummy and the cubs went away.
That's very touching.
Because owlbear, Mama, and the cubs are not going to care about these people with fire. They just want to get back together and go do their own thing.
You hear that, Rhea? You don't have to kill everything on the road. My sister is a murder hobo.
Uh,
No, it makes you insane. There's a difference. All right. Now, I've got one more question for you.
yep.
How do you build custom enemy stat blocks and abilities? How do you do it?
Ooh, that is an interesting question. So, first and foremost, is it a monster or is it a vague? Is it someone who could potentially be a player character? Because if it's a
I'm
monster,
thinking mini boss, main boss kind of thing. So it could be
so
either
I,
or.
um, so I have created things in the past. Some of them have been reskins. For example, I created a Fey Shield Guardian, um, which used a stat block for and modified that slightly. Um, if I am making a villain, I look at what the monster manual does for that villain for that specific kind of thing. So, for example, I had the idea of a power couple. One of my favorite bosses to do is a power couple. Um, one campaign was going to have an a I think they're referred to as shadow dragons. A dragon that has been corrupted by the Shadowfelt.
Yeah, I think those are the Shadow Dragons. Hold on, I got the monster manual pulled up right now.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
Shadow Dragons.
yeah. So a shadow dragon and a level 20 dragonborn sorceress. Uh, and they were going to be a husband and wife team that were planning on taking over this whole region as their domain. So if I get a character that has magic or has powers or whatnot, what will often happen is I will take a look at actually making them as a PC. So I give them their stats and then I level them up through their class all the way to the level that I want them to be.
Do you let their
So
stats
I
get
can,
past 20 since they are a monster, technically?
I will if it makes sense. Um, so for example, I mentioned that my last campaign, I had a plan for a level 20 paladin, level 20 wizard combination. Um, in the form of a once powerful necromancer that had been defeated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they, I would have leveled them up first in wizard and then in paladin, so multi-class into paladin, and then seen what would have happened, and then if there were any modifications that needed to be done, do those. They would have been extraordinarily wise and extraordinarily intelligent. They probably would have had like a 25 in those. So I, and then the play test to see if it's overpowered is when the players get to fight it. But the idea is by the time the players end up fighting your big bad evil guy, they should have the capability of defeating the big bad evil guy. And if some of them fall, it's a bittersweet end. Um, but hopefully they've got a cleric.
Hopefully.
or, or
Unfortunate for y'all.
hopefully, I'm more or less a cleric at this point. I've got cure wounds and healing. Well, no, I don't have cure wounds. I've got healing word.
You at least got the
Um,
paladin who has the lay on hands, at least.
yeah,
Because lay on hands, level 20. Sheesh.
that's a lot of hit points for free.
It's like 100, isn't it? Because it's your
Yeah,
charisma mod
your
times your
level or something.
paladin level,
Yeah,
and you get you always try to get charisma to 20 as fast as possible, just for the maximum lay on hands.
exactly.
Mhm. Yeah. When it comes to my process for making my big bads, I do it a little unconventionally. I'll find something I want to base it off of.
Mm.
Like, let's say, okay, cool. I want to find a wizard type big bad for this section of the campaign, and I'll go through my little cards I have that have the monsters on them. And oh, look at this Archmage. And then I'll be like, is this appropriate for the level they are at? Let's say they're all going to be level 5 right before the big battle. A CR 12 party of 4. It's about there, isn't it? But I'm usually like, it's the last battle. I want to make it a little deadly. So I'll go in and I will do some rolls. I will roll the HP out. And if it's a higher number, I'll take it. And then I might boost the AC by like 1 or 2 for a magic caster. And then sometimes I'll just reroll all the stats. Like that 46 trick I did for stats where you take away the lowest
Yep,
one. For my big bads, I don't take away that lowest number. The max they can get is 24, but that's very unlikely to happen.
yeah,
I think the biggest I've gotten one is 22 at the moment, which is only a +6. and you're thinking they got a +6 to this in its final battle after like 30 sessions. You know what I mean?
Ye, definitely.
All right, let's end this on a more light-hearted question. Who do you prefer, Hans or Franz? Brother
God
Hans or
damn it.
sister Franz?
Um,
Oh yeah, just a heads up. Sister Franz is transgender because they're both mules. They're both pack mules, and they were
yes,
both steeds.
yes.
So Hans
I
and
mean,
Franz.
I mean, I like them both equally. Long live, and well done on France. I'm glad that they felt comfortable, and long live the LGBTQIA plus community.
I'll be completely honest. The only reason Franz is a transgender female is because I accidentally called her Hans' sister Franz. But hey, that was probably for the best. It's gonna make a it made a great backstory to explain the insecurities this horse felt and its prejudiced horse community about it. And
Yeah,
that was the whole reason they ran off from the herd and became pack mules. I basically wrote Spirit, I think.
I mean that's how the best things happen. Sometimes I like throwing random. If I generally my characters don't, my NPCs don't have like a sexual affinity or a gender orientation until I'm like, oh, you know what, this would be a perfect time to just, yeah, fuck it, they're trans. There's no like incentive or anything. It's just like, yeah, they're trans. Um,
Or it'll be because of, oh, I messed up how they're saying it. Let's keep it.
yeah,
But then again, that's how some of the best stories are made, accidentally.
exactly. Yep,
And well, that's all for this episode of Behind the Screen, everyone. I hope you enjoyed. And as always, my dice goblins and gremlins, this is the Penmeister signing off.